What is up, everybody? We're talking about Georgia defensive backs at the NFL Combine. So I guess you could say former Georgia defensive backs, soon to be NFL defensive backs. Three of them, and it's safe to say they showed out at the old Combine there. But which one of them helped their draft stock the most? That and more next on Locked On Bulldogs podcast.
You are Locked On Bulldogs, your daily podcast on the Georgia Bulldogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Locked On Bulldogs, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thanks for making us your first listen. He is Daniel. I am Clint. Together, we are Locked On Bulldogs. Glad you guys are here. This episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them out today at nissanusa.com. Daniel and I are talking about the Combine. And no, it's not because we enjoy the NFL. No, it's not because we think the NFL is great. It's only because Georgia Bulldogs are participants in the Combine, which is the only thing that will get me watching anything to do with the NFL.
That's right.
And there are
good news for the NFL. There's a lot of Georgia Bulldogs participating in it.
Good news. I could pretty much watch any team at any time, and I'll be watching a Georgia Bulldog because they've been flooding. It's almost like now, Dan, we're going to get to this tomorrow. It's almost like some people got developed while at Georgia.
No.
In particular, wide receivers who got developed while at Georgia.
Well, what if I was to tell you there's some defensive backs who also got developed while they were Georgia? A couple 3-stars coming into the fold at Georgia
that's what's crucial.
Turn that 3 stars into first-round grades. Kamari Lassiter, Javon Bullard, and Tyke Smith all went to the Combine. They all had great showings at the Combine.
Yeah.
The 40-yard dash times, Clint.
Hello.
On the safeties in particular, they were significant. Both of them running right in that 4.445 range, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
And when you looked at the drills that Kamari Lassiter was doing, that drill where he goes down over the middle and then he turns his hips and he goes down the field, it reminded you that I think he might be one of the most underrated Georgia defensive backs that I can remember coming through Athens in a long time.
Ever. You guys, I'm just going to tell you that Kamari Lassiter, 3 cones, 6.62 seconds, which if you don't have any frame of reference, let me just tell you how that compares.
None of us do. None of us have any frame of reference.
Great. So let me just compare him with peers at the NFL Combine.
Could be helpful.
Okay, so let me tell you where, if you don't 3-cone drill, 6.62, is that good? Is that bad? Here's what it change of pace, change of direction, agility, tight spaces.
The exact things that defensive backs need to be able to do. Great, go ahead.
Okay. He's the fastest of any player in the NFL tested this draft class so far out of any college whatsoever.
Well, you put a lot of caveats on that, Clint. It seems like there's a lot of...
He's the best. There you go.
Well, you simplified it. Explain it to me like I'm 5. Mommy and Daddy give you money for a lemonade stand. Kamari Lassiter's the best of all the defensive backs that they... So it begs the question, Clint. We're going to ask kind of... Go ahead.
20-yard shuffle, he's the 3rd best of any single player so far tested the draft.
Well, but Clint, what we like to do is we like to use the eye test. We like to watch the tape.
No, go ahead and do that.
Now, did he do anything on the tape that would stand out to you in his Georgia career?
Do you mean he shut down one half of a field? And besides a couple of plays in which he did get touched quite a bit against top echelon wide receivers and then locked them down for an entire half following that. Yeah, the tape pans out just fine in his favor.
Tape pans out just fine in his favor. And you want to talk about top echelon wide receivers. This guy has gone against, I mean, look at some of the best receivers in this year's class, in last year's class.
Yeah.
Like, this guy's gone toe to toe with these guys. He has faced them with absolute tremendous success, as has Javon Bullard, as has Tyke Smith. And so, two questions I want to get to on the podcast. Second segment, we're going to talk about who helped their draft stock the most at this combine between those three players. And then third segment, I want to ask you who's going to have the best NFL career out of those three players, because they might not be the same answer. But it's safe to say, Clint, that all three of these guys showed out. And let's be totally honest, they're Georgia defensive backs. So what else do you expect at this point? They're going to show out at the combine because, and I want to make this point totally clear, but because you may think this episode has nothing to do with, you may be thinking to yourself, well, I'm not an NFL fan like Clint. I'm just a Georgia fan. And so I've already moved on to next year's team. Spring practice is right around the corner. I've already moved on to this year's team. Well, let me tell you.
Don't do that.
This has everything to do with next year's team. Do you want to know why? Because what's the one thing that these three defensive backs all have in common? And it is that Kirby Smart has developed them into the players that they are. They didn't step onto campus being this type of player, Clint. They have been developed into this type of player. What if I were to tell you that a certain number 6, Dalen Everett, comes back for a second full season under the tutelage of Kirby Smart? You tell me, Georgia fan, you tell me the defensive back under Kirby Smart that has had multiple years in the system that didn't pan out.
Do you see, it's important. Let me just, the biggest indication of your future success, wait for it, is previous success.
Yeah, and Kirby Smart, he batting 1,000 in this category because you can't name one defensive back for Georgia that has had multiple years in the system that didn't pan out to be a really good player.
Very good.
And so it should make you all the more confident in guys like Dalen Everett, in guys in this young secondary under Kirby Smart, Glenn Schumann, obviously Will Muschamp in an analyst role, all these coaches. It should give you all the confidence in the world. So we're going to talk about these three guys, who had the best combine, who's going to have the best NFL career, all that and more right after these.
Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the corner next? Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capabilities to take your adventure to the next level. Nissan Rogue 2024 is perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class exclusive, Google built-in, always updating assistant to call on for almost anything. Gone are the days of connecting your phone. Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store are built right into the 12.3-inch HD touchscreen infotainment system. 2024 Rogue is the perfect mid-size crossover for your next adventure. What about the Nissan Pathfinder? Has room up to 8 and expansive cargo capacity and advanced available 4x4 capability with 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds of towing. When adventure calls, the Pathfinder is there to answer. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, and Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop nissanusa.com. The three showed out, Daniel, these defensive backs that Kirby Smart is so prolific at creating. And yes, he gets raw material that is good because you have to have Jimmy and Joe's, but then not only X's and O's, but it's the development. It's taking the raw material of these 3-star, 4-star, 5-star, whatever star, it doesn't matter to Kirby Smart. He will mold them into a NFL ready player that is smart, that is fast, that is decisive. You saw this from a lot of players. We already lavished praise Kamari Lassiter. What about Javon Bullard, Tyke Smith? What if I just went over, peruse really quickly the 40-yard dash results, which for a DB, normally 40-yard dash. Okay, hey, here's the deal. Whatever. Like, we're going to talk about Amarius Mims tomorrow. That's just fun. Like, all honesty,
silly. You know what it is? It's silly.
It's
tune in tomorrow because it's going to be a wild old time.
It's unnecessarily flexing, but also totally
really
necessary.
Is. Yeah.
But with defensive backs, you want to go ahead. You got catch up speed. You got to go ahead and break on the ball. You got to do those things. So what if I was to look at the 40-yard dash?
Well,
results,
you got a ball. You got a lame duck.
Yeah,
coming down in the back of the end zone.
Okay,
you see, Clint. You see. You see where I'm going in this.
I see where you're going.
And you're about 15 yards away.
Okay, so you're out of position, is what you're saying.
It's not great for you. Okay. It's not great for you.
Okay.
But that ball just floating down into a young man's arms, and you just go ahead and say, I'm going to turn on that 40-yard dash right now, and I'm going to get over there in a hurry, and when I get there, I'm going to bring the lumber and make a season-saving, national championship-saving play in the back corner of the end zone. That's why it matters.
Well, that you just described Javon Bullard in exacting detail.
I did.
Yeah,
I did.
Tyke Smith, Javon Bullard, stayed at Georgia, got developed, and are currently right now sitting with DBs being done 5th and 6th fastest 40-yard dash of the defensive back safeties position of the combine, being beat out only by a handful of people that are not going to be drafted higher because of size, because of development, because of tape, what it looks like. Javon Bullard, Tyke Smith showed out and performed admirably well.
Absolutely, they did.
On the field. Kamari Lassiter. So, Daniel, the question is, who had the best combine performance? Tyke Smith, Javon Bullard, or Kamari Lassiter? Now, again, Kamari didn't test in the 40. We don't have numbers for him. He didn't have to. He showed out on the cone drill, and he said, I'm not going to pull a hammy. I'm not going to do any of that. So I'm just going to look at the tape. Go back and look at the tape. Who had the best combine out of those three?
You know, I'm going to go with this answer to this one, and I'm curious to know what your thoughts are and who you think had the best combine. But I think as Georgia fans especially, we can kind of look at this defensive back group as a cluster.
Mm-hmm.
And I think particularly we can look at Tyke Smith and Javon Bullard as almost a single unit, like a single person. Because we've talked for years about like who's going to play safety, who's going to be the star, who's going to be kind of down up near the line of scrimmage, who's going to be in the nickel package, who's going to be like, dropping back deep. Is it Javon? Is it Tyke? Is it Javon? Is it Tyke? We've almost begun to view these guys the same. I think it's hard to sometimes remember as a Georgia fan, these guys are going to go to 3 different teams.
Mm-hmm.
And 5 years from now, they're going to have individual careers. I think the guy that the combine was the most important for is Tyke Smith, because I think, at least from a Georgia fan's perspective, he's the easiest guy to overlook.
He was the group. I'm going to use this air quotes, Georgia fan. Don't say I'm not saying this. I'm just saying of those 3, he's the forgotten one. He's
the third wheel almost. Like of the
he's
3,
the overlooked one. Kamari Lassiter is going to be a lockdown corner. You look at Bullard, and everybody knew we think he should be a first-round grade. We said so before the season. Many people have that grade on him. If he slips out of the first round, there's a couple of steals in this draft. He could be one of them.
But Tyke Smith just went out there and was like, hey, everything you think Javon Bullard is, I'm right here. I'm right here. And if Team A drafts Javon Bullard and Team B drafts Tyke Smith, there's not necessarily any evidence to say that Team A is getting a better player than Team B. I think this combine showed that Tyke Smith is going to have his own NFL career. I'm not saying it's going to be a better career. We'll get to that in the third segment, but I think it's most important for him because it is sort of that first step to him establishing himself in his own right as a really talented, really physically gifted football player. Like,
yes, I think that's the knock that you get on him. You think of Tyke and you think experience, you think ability to do play calls, you think those things.
savvy.
Sure. Kind of like the old man in the room, because quite frankly, he's been there many more years. Came from West Virginia, in which he was an All-American. But this showed he had the most to gain from this combine, and he gained the most by performing well. I think you're absolutely right. He went from maybe I'm going to put like a third round, fourth round grade, but he was down fifth, sixth round, looking in that category, where I think he's now mid day 2, possibly day 3, certainly in that mix. I think he gained the most. I think you're absolutely right, Daniel. And he showed that, to your point, it's a different answer, segment 3. But now, if you were looking at Javon Bullard, let's say you're a team and you're like, oh man, I got Javon Bullard. He's up there high. I want him. And you miss out on him. You're like, oh man, dang it. Okay. All right. We need some DB help. We need some safety help. We missed out on Bullard, but we got to pick 20 picks later.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you think, oh, well, we can just get almost the same.
This guy.
We can get Bullard again.
Yeah.
But now at a lower cost. I think Bullard does have a higher ceiling than Tyke, but maybe that's. I think I don't know exactly. This showed me a great deal. I don't know, but my gosh, he made himself. And when you're talking about that sort of leap in those picks, you're talking a bunch of guaranteed money. That the difference here is you're talking an NFL rookie contract. That's real money. That's not a collective of promises of ketchup packets and leases that run out. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about
Ole Miss.
No,
Ole Miss is NIL. Like just Lane Kiffin, just a wink from Lane Kiffin.
If Lane Kiffin ever winks at you, first of all, you have an assault charge that you need to bring against him. Secondly, run.
You'll be subpoenaed.
You are on a docket. By the way, really quick, we talked about Kamari last year. We talked about his 3-cone drill and not understanding that. But again, it's just change of direction, it's fluidity. The difference between his score and the next closest person to him, Ryan Watts of Texas, is 0.2 of a second. Now, again, you're like, okay, what does that matter? 0.2 of a second, whatever. From Ryan Watts to Miles Harden to Mike over at Michigan to Josh Newton to Smith Wade at Washington State. Those are within 0.2 of a second of each other. And I just listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people. And the difference between Kamari Lassiter and that group of 5 is the same distance from 1 and 2. See what I'm saying? So 2 through 5 clustered really close. That's the difference between Kamari Lassiter and everybody else in this class. It's obscene.
He's the best, is what you're saying.
Again,
say it. Tell it to me like I'm 4.
He's better than everybody by a wide margin.
Wow. All right. Now we're getting somewhere. All right. But who's going to have the best NFL career? We will talk about that among these 3 DBs right after this.
Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and NBA teams with QuickBet, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
All right, Clint, we talked about the combine. We both agreed that Tyke Smith probably made himself the most money at this combine. It was probably most important for him. But these 3 DBs, I said we kind of view them all as a cluster. They kind of go together, the 3 amigos, if you will. These guys have been linked. It was common knowledge they were all coming out in this NFL draft. Who do we think, though, when we look at these 3 defensive backs, who do we think over the long haul, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, when we look back, Who will have had the best NFL career? That's the question for the third segment.
I'm sorry. This isn't a question. Is this, Daniel?
I think it's a question, but I'm curious to know why you don't.
See, to me, this isn't even close to a question.
Okay. Make your case, sir.
Kamari Lassiter has the size, the mentality, the speed, the quickness, the change of direction, all of that. He has everything that you are looking for in a prototypical cornerback in the NFL. And when I say game tape, I'm not just simply talking about his blanket ability, his ability to get sticky with somebody and stay with them. I'm not talking about just only that. I'm talking about in the NFL, you can't be soft. Now teams that are soft, look at the Eagles right now. The Eagles had a bunch of, look at the Niners right now with their soft cornerbacks who didn't come up, who weren't able to challenge. And these are teams that are good, great, exceptional, championship winning caliber teams. However, they couldn't finish it in part because their cornerbacks didn't want to come up and pop somebody and make a tackle and wrap their arms around a NFL running back and bring them down. Has that been a problem for Kamari Lassiter at all in his career, Daniel? Has he ever been afraid to come up and pop somebody? Not one time. Look at the game tape. This dude brings it all the time. So if I'm looking at not just blanket ability, not just get sticky with somebody, which he has, lockdown ability, which he has, size, check, speed, check, change of direction, check, mentality, check. Okay, but can he come up and run support? Yeah, absolutely. You need 11 guys playing perfect ball all the time because Patrick Mahomes is out there running around and dancing for his life and making magic happen. And you need somebody to come up and be able to contain that. And that's exactly what Kamari Lassiter is. So for me, I understand safety. I understand even the new ability to come down in the slot, play safety. That's not John Lynch safety. That's something besides that. You have to be able to morph and hybrid a lot more. That is just the college football and quite frankly, NFL today. But for me, it's Kamari Lassiter, and it's not even close. Daniel, do you disagree, agree? Where do you land on that?
Listen, I probably agree, but I'm going to fall well short of saying it's a lock. I think that if Javon Bullard, who is 5'11", were 6'3",
okay,
he would be a can't miss NFL safety prospect. And I think he would probably be a top 15 pick in this NFL draft. The reason that Javon Bullard, it ain't his 40 time, it ain't his game tape, it ain't his toughness, it ain't his mentality. All of that.
What about his tackling ability? His tackling ability is suspect, is it?
Nope.
Okay.
It's none of that. The knock on Javon Bullard is always going to be that if you look at the best safeties in the NFL, there is a prototype for who those guys are. Minkah Fitzpatrick, Kyle Hamilton for the Baltimore Ravens. These are big guys. These are 6'4", 6'3", 6'4". In some cases, even it's like 6'5". These are big guys. They are long. They are athletic. They are rangy. But look at a guy like for the Nashville-based Tennessee Titans, Kevin Byard.
Here we go.
This is a guy that I really do think Javon Bullard has legitimately got that ceiling. It's more rare to see. I'm not going to call him massively undersized because he's not massively undersized.
He is not.
But he is undersized. It is more rare to see an undersized safety pan out to the all-pro type of level that you're hoping for a Javon Bullard, but it's not unheard of. It's not unprecedented. And so while
I hear you, Daniel. I think It's not unprecedented. I like that comp.
You hear
What
me,
you're
but
No, I hear you. I agree with you.
Yeah. I think it's yeah. It's Kamari Laster's the most likely outcome. But
okay.
It's not by a runaway because Javon Bullard is right. Like, he absolutely could have the highest ceiling of any of these three guys.
Yeah. If you're asking me to make a lotto tick bet, I'm doing Lassiter to window each and every time. If you're telling me if this was 5 years from now, you're like, hey, just so you know, Javon Bullard is currently one of the top 3 safeties in the entire league. I would never say you're crazy. I would never say, no, I'm not going to take that bet. But I would take that lotto ticket. I wouldn't say you're crazy. He has that special ability. He has that absolute mentality. He's a workaholic guy. He says all the right things, not only because he's just performing well, but because he actually believes in it. He's been developed. So I don't disagree with that. That's the 3 DBs that showed out so far. We got some offensive guys that showed out in a big way.
You want to talk about a lotto ticket? I'm going to give you tomorrow. I'm going to give you a lock of the century of the week tomorrow, that you better find a bookie that will take your money on this, because I'm telling you it's going to happen tomorrow.
Just so we're perfectly clear, tomorrow I'm gonna. Hey, 199. It's just us here. We're all hanging. We're all feeling good. I'm gonna make a statement tomorrow. This year's draft class has 3 Georgia players that may well in 5 years become the best at their position in the entire NFL. I'm sorry. I'm not joking, and I'm not just being a homer, and I would fight you if you said I'm crazy for that thought, because it's real. We're going to talk about that. Yep. It's coming. It's been real. He is Daniel. I am Clint. We'll see you all tomorrow.